Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us at the MarketSite studio in Times Square, New York City, we have Erez Aminov, CEO of MIRA Pharmaceuticals, as well as Dr. Adam Kaplin, co-founder and chief science officer of MIRA Pharmaceuticals. We're going to discuss a drug that treats anxiety and cognitive decline in elderly patients without the negative side effects of cannabis plant extracts. It's great to have you both with us. Erez, I want to start with you. Let's talk about the business first. Just IPOing on the Nasdaq stock market last August 3rd. Tell us about the rationale to come to the public markets.
Sure. So we're developing something that's very new to the market, a novel synthetic THC analog. Never before have we seen a cannabinoid that can treat symptoms of anxiety, chronic pain, all while enhancing your cognition. So we felt it was very important to come on a platform like the Nasdaq markets to be able to share the story with the rest of the world, to let them know that there is a pharmaceutical company working on innovating the way we treat anxiety and chronic pain, especially in elderly patients who are suffering from cognitive decline, but there are really no treatments that can help them with anxiety and their cognition at the same time. So it's a very unique product. We felt that doing this by bringing it to the masses will help to get the story out and people behind us, and having an opportunity to use the proceeds from the IPO to focus on our clinical development to try to get this to market as soon as possible.
And one of the key features is you don't get the unwanted side effects of cannabinoids, and that's really what, especially for elderly patients, I'm sure that's a concern for them.
Yes, of course. So the largest growing segment of cannabis users, recently was talked about by Dr. Gupta on CNN, is the elderly population. They're starting to use cannabis more as an alternative for some of their opioid pain treatments or other benzos for anxiety, and they're using cannabis, but unfortunately that comes with those unwanted side effects such as cognitive impairment, and the last thing we want is an elderly person in his 70s that's having his cognition impaired. That could potentially result in other injuries. So we are really addressing an unmet need to be able to help the elderly population treat their anxiety while potentially helping improve their cognition.
Dr. Kaplin, let's talk about the science side of it first. Tell us more about the technology and the medicine that's going into this particular treatment.
Sure. I think the best analogy is antihistamines. We were studying those back in the 20th century. Someone went to say, well, gee, let's make an analog of that. They found out that it was not sedating like antihistamines. It actually calmed people down. That's where we got antipsychotics. From there, we developed antidepressants. We took THC, made some changes, analogs to it, and unlocked a potential to improve cognition. And that's dramatic because we took normal mice and made them twice as good at memorizing the tasks we gave them. So, you know, to be able to make anything, any normal brain do twice as well as it would as nature saw fit to make it was dramatic. So we're excited about that.
So MIRA 1A, how is the treatment designed? What does it do to the body to help reduce cognitive decline and anxiety?
So it's working through some of the same receptors that THC does. CB1 and CB2 are the receptors that the body already has for THC and other cannabinoids that are in cannabis, that are in marijuana. It works through some of the same receptors, some different, and our best understanding of it now is that the way it actually moves and activates these receptors is in a much more controlled way. So THC causes, you know, initially a small effect and then a huge effect as the dose goes up, and it goes up quickly for people. Often they don't know that they're getting high, so they take more. And when it goes up quickly, that's where you get the cognitive impairment, increased automobile accidents, you get side effects like some people get paranoid, and it actually uncovers psychosis. There are people, if you have psychosis in your family, you are more likely to develop psychosis, and sometimes it doesn't go away with chronic use. So we don't have that high effect, we level out. And this leveling out seems to be critical in allowing us to push the envelope of what is therapeutic without getting into the side effects.
So if you were to take this type of medicine, in theory, you should be able to function throughout your day and say, operate a vehicle, or it's certainly more safe than, I guess, recreational forms of marijuana use.
Absolutely. So in fact, this improved performance is what in the elderly who have dementia right now, the best we can do is try to slow this inexorable decline in people's cognitive function. This is the first treatment being brought to market that I know of that is targeting improving their lost cognition. So actually helping to give people back what they've lost. And that's
interesting. It's almost like regeneration. Do you think it can be used for other areas of medicine, perhaps MS or Parkinson's, where it's
a great point.
Drastic decline?
Yeah, those are great points. I specialize in MS as a clinician and have done a lot of research in that area at Johns Hopkins. And I think you're absolutely right. I would love to get into those two specific. You read my mind. Maybe you should come work with us. MS and Parkinson's would be high on the list.
Which is interesting because it's not even cannabinoid research that we've been covering more, but as well as psychedelics and using various clinical forms of that to help treat even mental health issues and so forth. It's amazing what they're doing with these. How do you think the pharmaceutical industry will respond to this, considering that they already have drugs out there, or that I guess are what you would call synthetics or already manufactured? If these can be treated with psychedelics and cannabinoids and so forth, do you think the pharmaceutical industry would be receptive, or perhaps partner with smaller biotechs to bring this to market on a commercialized basis?
Absolutely. So cannabis use is on a rise. There are approximately 50 million Americans that are using cannabis yearly, 35 million Americans that use cannabis monthly. In 2022, cannabis sales were greater than chocolate, greater than beer. So the acceptance of cannabis is really, really growing. And there's so many regulatory hurdles around cannabis. There are half the states that allow it and half the states that don't allow it. It's very difficult to know what's pure and what you're getting when you're going into a dispensary. So we feel a pharmaceutical company would be looking for a clean entry into this huge $50 billion market to be able to give a prescription drug that can give the benefits of THC, but without the side effects. Potentially, that's something we're looking to accomplish. And aside from the large 90 billion plus neuropathic markets, treating anxiety, chronic pain, and dementia, there is a large cannabis market, legal and recreational. So we feel if you're a patient, you're going to feel much more comfortable knowing that the drug went through the safety and efficacy evaluation of the FDA, and your doctor can talk to you about your symptoms and give you a better treatment option.
Because chronic pain is debilitating, not only just physically, but mentally. It wears you down, like to the point you'll take whatever it takes.
Yeah, no question. Yes. I can tell you the FDA will love this because right now everybody's using the Schedule 1 drug. THC is Schedule 1, which to the FDA means you can't prescribe it. There's no use for it. So this creates a real problem that everybody's using it. From a physician's point of view, at Johns Hopkins, we can't prescribe it because it's Schedule 1. You can only get a card that lets you use it at a dispensary. But from the patient standpoint, what people get from being able to have recreational and medical marijuana is the ability to take control of their own illness. And that means a lot. On the other hand, that's somewhat of a failing on the part of medicine to provide all of the things people need. But what I think people will find is that you don't have any kind of regulatory involvement. The potency of the marijuana you're using varies. And again, what this does is it provides some of the same benefits like decreased anxiety, but it doesn't cause the psychosis, at least in animal models. And it enhances cognition. That's a game changer.
It doesn't have the addictive attributes that benzos or opiates, or, I mean, we know the crisis that we're suffering here in the US. It doesn't have, or do we definitively know it doesn't have the potential to do that in the same way using
It's
THC?
too early to, I'd love to speculate.
Right.
The fact that it doesn't have this huge effect, that it's more tempered, suggests that perhaps it'll be less addicting. Certainly we know that the DEA has taken a look at it and determined that it is currently it's not a controlled substance. So that's a really encouraging thing. But until we get into humans, I can't definitively say we know.
All right, well, certainly an interesting market to follow. Appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us on Trade Talks. And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.